Angela says, I am in Florida, South Florida, where it is always hot and humid. Any suggestions for what to grow in my zone? So your system is definitely a perennial, almost like tropical system, probably drier, right, Dave? And things to grow there would be, I think bananas work well there in terms of trees. Almost everything, avocados, I know moringa. I'm just thinking of trees because a lot of my friends who are in South Florida are growing those kinds of trees, whereas I can't grow them as successfully, although I can try here in the north or northern East Coast. But you're lucky because Florida is wet and it's sunny and you have all the best conditions for growing, and it's pretty much the same throughout the year. So you can grow virtually anything, Angela, except for the cooler things. So what'll be hard for you would be like the things that do well in the cool. So your brassicas, your kale, your cabbages, your leafy greens, your lettuces, you'll have to find some varieties. Lettuces, you can grow some varieties that are more heat tolerant. You can grow collards. Collards are heat tolerant if you needed, more leafy greens, but you can grow practically anything. We have iguana planto. Oh my goodness, great. Just moved to a new area and climate, Arizona. So Arizona is dry. And that's a wonderful climate to work with, just because it's challenging for us. There's a lot of, now I want you to get this. This is a good resource book for Arizona because it was written by somebody from Arizona, and it's called Rainwater Harvesting for Dry Lands. Arizona, Utah, Colorado, places in the West and the higher climates that have trouble with water, because water is your main thing with Arizona. So Rainwater Harvesting for Dry Lands, this is written by Brad Lancaster, and this is my bedside reading. So it's a good book to review. Like, I'm always reviewing it because water is essential, and you can capture that water in the landscape. It is possible in the desert, and we will show you in the slides to come how. So stay tuned. So Angela says, we have iguana problems in which they eat everything I plant. Okay, so that is very interesting because I've never had an iguana problem. I've had other problems. But you might try to use wire mesh around your planting beds. That might be a way to deter them. I don't know how you'd have to observe the iguana for sure. Do they like to burrow? Do they like to, would they burrow through the nets? Katie Kimball, by the way, if you are here, please unmute yourself and show us your face. Yay! Hi. Because I'm like, there are lots of Katies here, and I was wondering whether it was you yet. And I wanted to make sure that you were here for your peeps who are mostly here. And I'm going to just take a look at how.
I know I came on and I know I'm supposed to like unmute and turn on the video, but I kind of went, and I had to like scroll to the second page, like, wow, look at all these names.
Yes.
I've never seen a Zoom with that many before.
I know. This is just a happening webinar today, and we are so happy that 878 of Katie Kimball's friends are here with us today.
Hi,
so,
friends.
Well, 878 will see this or in some way, form, or another, right. But we are so happy to have you guys here, and so grateful to you, Katie, for introducing us to all of your friends. So
I love it. Well, people were excited, and it's something that's needed because that's what I think when I think of gardening. I'm like, it's too hard. I don't have time, and I fail a lot. So I'm as excited as anyone to hear this because I know I have a little space where I think I can do it, and I just gotta put on my big girl panties and do it.
Oh, Katie, I know you can do it. This is your year. We'll start baby steps, right? I'll be saying that. I'll be saying that. Okay, Central Minnesota, a pretty short growing season. Yes. Also a nightshade-free family. Oh dear, you've got nightshade allergies. Okay, and picky eaters that like most veggies raw but not cooked. So no canning or freezing. Wonderful. Then that's why you need your garden, right? You need it. Let me put on the lights here. You need your veggies fresh. Anything you want to say, Dave, please back me up. Minnesota.
So I'm just going to be typing and muting people as they come in, because just muting people is initially what my head's full. So I'll start typing in the chat box, but I won't be chatting very much for audio.
Yes, because you're going to be looking at the emails as well to those people who are trying to get in, because there's always someone who'll have a little bit of trouble. And we'll have to resend them the link or something of that sort. So thank you for your patience, guys. So it's 1:56. Okay, very interesting. Central Minnesota. So, okay, I have not worked with that climate. I have to be honest.
It's probably like mine in Michigan.
Oh, is it?
I'm guessing it's probably it's short. I mean, you get your spring greens and your asparagus. Oh, Nikki, you're muted.
Oh, sorry.
No, now you're not.
I'm just thinking of what the altitude would be in Minnesota. You know, I want to say that to find out. So we have another webinar where we talk about how to time your.
Tell me what it is. Just describe.
Uh-oh. Dave is gonna look for whose screen that is. But while Dave is figuring that out, we have a whole webinar on, as I was saying, on figuring out what to grow, and it's unique to your own situation, because we've put all the plants and their germination temps. We've studied all this, and out of it came an app that Dave built, which we can tell you a little bit more about later, I hope, where you can plug in your zip code and then it'll show you what you should be growing now and when to harvest it. So it's really cool, because you plug in your zip code and then you can see based on what you put in, like beans, cabbage, so your area is very cool. So you guys, Minnesota, Michigan, will be big on the opposite stuff from Florida. So it'll be like all the greens, cabbages, collards, brassicas, and then you'll have a short season for the summer crops like tomatoes, and then it'll be fall again. So you'll have to put in your peas and your beans, and those kind of fava beans will do well in the fall. Peas will do well in the fall still, and then collards, Brussels sprouts. So those leafy green, cool-loving temperatures, because they're cool-loving crops, because there are two kinds of crops: the hot-loving and the cool-loving, and then they're divided into two more things. But yeah, that's the other webinar. So stick with us. If you're on our list, we will send you notice of when that starts. My goodness, so many questions. We have 1 more minute left. And at this point in time, I just want to acknowledge once again Katie Kimball and Kitchen Stewardship for sponsoring this webinar, bringing all of you ladies and gents here today to learn about growing food in small spaces. And I will turn off my face at this point in time, but not my voice. Hide myself, and then
I'm gonna go mute too. But I just shout out to the Kitchen Stewardship readers here. I love it. This is all part of being a good steward. But I'm gonna mute and turn off so I can eat my dark chocolate in peace.
Yay! Yes, eating aloud. Okay, so I'm gonna. What is that? I'm so sorry for that message. Okay. I have other devices around. Okay, so now I'm going to officially start. And let me know if I'm coming loud and clear, and whether you can see my screen that I'm sharing. Dave, unmute yourself, please, if you can, and let me know if everything's looking good on your end.
Everything looks good so far. I'm just,
okay.
I want to go over the ground rules for muting yourselves.
Okay, sorry. Okay, it is 8. Hello, All right, let's start with the ground rules for muting yourself. If you are not muted upon entry, if you're not muted and you join this webinar, kindly find the mute, thank you. kindly find the mute button and turn your mic off just for the duration of this presentation so that we can eliminate all background noises. Okay, and here I go. So hello, my name is Nikki. That's me on the picture. I am thrilled that you are here. Welcome, welcome. If you have a yearning to grow your own food, whether or not you have grown food in the past, this webinar is for you. And it's especially for you if you have been told that you do not have enough room to grow in. You are in the right place. Welcome to Growing Food in Small Spaces. Our ambitious goal is your abundant harvest. So let's set you up for success right away. Gardening is always a very rich topic, and I wanted to make sure that you walk away from this training ready and able to grow. So please keep in mind, I'm going deep, and I need your focus, so kindly turn off your cell phones just for this half hour. Embedded in this talk is a song, and if you can guess the title of that song, use the question box function to type in the correct answer so we can send you a free packet of seeds. This is for real, so listen intently. You can also use that chat box to field us any questions at any time during the talk. In the interest of time, we will try to answer as many of your questions during the presentations, and any questions that we do not tackle, as long as you type it in, we will do our best to get back to you about it. So engage in the webinar with us in this way. Finally, take notes. I use Evernote when I'm online, but I also use a physical agenda, whatever the best note-taking device is for you.
Sorry to interrupt, Nix. I think you're not sharing the presentation screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for telling me. Let me try that one more time. Okay, I'm not sharing my screen. I start my video, shared my screen. Do you see it now?
We see the Zoom screen,
okay.
but not
do you see that now? PowerPoint. Okay, do you see it now?
The PowerPoint?
Yes.
No.
Oh my goodness, I wonder what's happening. Okay, here we go. Now, do you see that?
Yes.
All right, yay, we did it. Okay, so turn off distractions, engage in the chat box, take notes. Now, we want to know what tiny space or what backyard or large space you're growing in. Where are you growing from, and where in the world do you grow at? Do you grow in a townhouse backyard, a garden plot, an apartment? Where and what is your tiny space? Feel free to share it in the chat box. And this is where we grow. This is our front yard. If you guys were over to my house today, this is where I'd welcome you home. And we live in a tiny townhouse, which is roughly, we've calculated 1/40th of an acre. So as you can see, we have very little room to grow in. This is our front yard, and this is our backyard, and that's me putting some netting on the blueberries so the birds don't eat them all. And this is our family. We have 6 awesome, energetic kids who, for the most part, actually like eating veggies. And in the summertime, 25% of our food comes from our garden. My husband, Dave, and I run Permaculture Gardens, a website dedicated to helping you grow your own food. And we started on this gardening journey when our first 2 children, Zoe, the tallest girl, and Ethan, the tallest boy in the picture, started exhibiting severe food allergies. Zoe was diagnosed with failure to thrive, and she was 18 pounds for what seemed like forever. And she was allergic to all nuts, milk, eggs, fish, chicken, peas, and beans. And my son, Ethan, was allergic to fish and all nuts when they're first diagnosed, which was at 6 months. Even to this day, we still end up in the emergency room because they have mistakenly eaten nuts. But the good news is that they have outgrown all the other allergies except for most nuts, and now they can even eat almonds. So why do we grow? We grow our food mainly for 3 reasons. First, as you have just heard, due to health issues and concerns about the nutrition and safety of our store-bought food. Second, we grow for spiritual reasons. We believe that there is a creator and that every garden is an opportunity for us to restore paradise and to restore ourselves. There is a spiritual calm that allows us to reflect on what it is we were meant to do. We get to reflect on our place in the universe, and we find peace and joy in the garden, and ultimately we find God in the garden. Finally, for economic reasons, we are a big family. Organic food is expensive. We want the fresh organic produce, but we want the cheapest organic produce as well. We're very demanding. The organic food that we sought was definitely more expensive than the conventional produce we were buying before the allergies our kids had. On average, we've estimated from our own food shops that we now spend about $1 more for organic versus non-organic produce. That's an expensive price tag, especially given the fact that there are statistics like this from UC Davis. 100% of all vitamin C in spinach is gone after a week of refrigeration, or that you have to eat 8 oranges today for the same amount of vitamin A as our grandparents would have gotten from having just eaten 1. All this data made us think, well, perhaps I wouldn't feel so bad if the expensive fruits and veggies I buy from the groceries are the freshest, most nutrient-dense produce there is to be found. I don't mind paying $1 more for that. But that on top of it being pricey, I have to settle for the food being about a week old from shipping and not really that nutritious too, just to make sure that I am not eating pesticide poisons. I don't know about you, but that makes me question the commercial food system in the first place. So we turned to gardening. We were going to grow our own food. After all, Dave had been a junior gardener growing alongside his mom as a kid, and I was a black thumb. The results, as you can see, were less than stellar. A couple of tomatoes, a few basil leaves, and I felt heartbroken when my first basil plant died because I didn't know they were supposed to die from the cold because they were annuals. So until one day on one of our bookstore dates, Dave and I stumbled upon this word, permaculture. Now, if you are already familiar with this word, say yes in the question box. And if you are not familiar with it, permaculture basically means designing with nature, not against it. It means mimicking existing natural design systems and strategically connecting plants, animals, soil, your home, and you, the grower, so that everyone works in concert towards a sustainable and abundant yield. Permaculture has a lot to do with what comes next. Because of permaculture, my black thumb started growing a shade greener every year. So this is our backyard harvest that shows our yearly produce yields. So it is possible. I am officially no longer a black thumb. Every year after we started implementing permaculture principles, we grew more and more despite what many would call our space constraints. We use this data as motivation to help us grow more every year until we can finally get most of our food by growing it instead of buying it. You may well ask, how much grocery money can I save from growing my own food? Here is some data from a famous organic gardener author, Rosalind Creasy, author of Edible Landscapes. $700 is the amount of organic produce you can grow in a 10 by 10 square foot plot. We found this to be true ourselves, and we think this figure of $700 is on the low side. People whom we help through our Grow It Yourself program, which I'll share with you in a little bit, have mentioned to us that they've calculated the amount of produce they were harvesting to be $600 in one summer and around those figures. So that's great. The solution to saving money lies in your backyard or even your patio, because yes, you can grow food even in containers on your deck. Now, tell us in the chat box, what are your reasons for growing? We seriously want to know if this resonates with you, if all the reasons we related sound like something familiar, and if there's anything we haven't mentioned, we want to know that as well. What has brought you here today, and what has compelled you to want to grow your own food? So type that into the question box. I wish I knew how to erase this, this little red line that I've just drawn here by mistake. And I will go on. Here's a quote from Bill Mollison, often called the father of permaculture. He died only a year and a half ago. I consider him my permaculture grandfather because I was trained by someone whom he taught directly. Perhaps we seek to recreate the Garden of Eden, and why not? We believe that a low-energy, high-yield agriculture is a possible aim for the whole world, and that it needs only human energy and intellect to achieve this. Low energy, high yield is another way of saying the way to go about this gardening business is to work smart, not hard. In fact, permaculture gardens are actually run by quote unquote lazy gardeners. Lazy gardeners, ha! Okay, in order to become a lazy gardener, you need to know a little bit about these 3 aspects of gardening, and now I'm going to sing. So if you can guess this song, you win a free packet of seeds, okay? So here goes. First, patterns, look for patterns. You know the song? Type it into the chat box. Remember, permaculture always begins with observing the laws of nature. And where does nature reveal these laws? In patterns. To elaborate, in your small growing space, you want to work just as the animals and plants do. They work in circles, spirals, branches. On the left of the slide, we see a honeycomb pattern that bees use to store their honey in. It just so happens to be the most space-saving arrangement for them and us if we use it in the proper way, as for instance, in the case of placing your seeds on a seed flat or in your garden bed in a honeycomb pattern as well, like in a hexagon, in these hexagons, see? Planting in this way maximizes the use of your small space. Now, patterns are not just necessarily physical. You also need to notice the patterns of the seasons in your yard, the temperatures in a day, what happens in the fall, in the spring, what grows only in the summertime. Even the system, permaculture itself, is in the form of a pattern. It's a cyclical pattern where there is no waste. We use what we have. We have initial inputs like soil or seed, but the aim in permaculture is to get to the point where you are not buying the seed or hauling the soil anymore year after year. That doesn't come right away. It comes later, maybe 5-10 years down the road. But permaculture is in the form of, as opposed to other organic methods, is a cycle. It's also a very low maintenance method because we will be incorporating a lot of perennials. When planning your organic garden, think more along the lines of building a food forest. Put the apple trees in first, the perennial berry bushes first, the perennial edible plants like rhubarb or asparagus for sure. More perennials means your garden is more stable and requires less maintenance. But I'm growing in pots, you may say. How can I grow trees on my patio? Voila! This is from a great book by Nikki Jabbour called Groundbreaking Food Gardens. And in it, she features the fig tree growing in a pot. The bigger the pot, the better. And I'm about to tell you why. Just make sure the pots aren't too big or too heavy for you to bring indoors if the trees need to be brought in. You can definitely put the big pots on wheels as well. Figs will overwinter in Virginia. In fact, there's a variety called the Chicago hardy fig. So that tells you a little bit about container gardening and figs. Nothing should stop you from growing. Nothing. In fact, small growing spaces are more productive per square foot than commercial agricultural operations. Let's repeat that again. Small growing spaces are more productive per square foot than commercial agricultural operations. Your backyard is more productive than Driscoll Strawberry Farm. Wow. How can that be? Why do you think this is so? The first reason that comes to mind for me is that your small growing space is more attended to than acres and acres of monocrop culture. And the second reason is that you are not limited to growing only one type of crop, only one crop like strawberries in your yard. And you shouldn't, because the more diverse your ecosystem, the more stable it becomes. Write this down, guys. and gals. The more diverse your ecosystem, the more stable it becomes. Diversity is the key in your garden, any size garden, even a garden in a pot. That's why I said you have to make the pot that you use as big as you can, because you want to make it as diverse as you can. You want to stuff in as many little different things as you can into it. But how do I know what combinations of plants grow well together? We have a companion planting chart for you. This is another application of pattern to observe what plants like to grow together. This is a slide, an infographic from the Seed Foundation in South Africa that shows a general companion planting scheme. In general, members of the Brassica family, which include cabbages, kale, and radishes, do not like being planted together with strawberries. So I try not to plant them too close together to keep them from inhibiting each other. And plants that are a bit tricky to grow are fennel and potatoes. So you want to check the companion planting charts for those guys. Members of the legume family, which means peas and beans, you can put anywhere and it will be good for both parties. The more you grow food each year, the more familiar you will become with these companion planting charts or patterns, and you could even find a planting combination that works well that perhaps no one's ever found before. The important thing to do is to start your garden with a plan and to make each plant choice, each element in your garden count. This is an example of a beneficial grouping of plants, which in permaculture we call a guild. Growers often note that tomatoes grow and taste better when alongside basil, and studies, as well as our experience, show that marigolds deter many common pests naturally without the need for pesticides, such as the tomato hornworm. In addition, marigolds are also great pollinators, and that helps ensure that tomatoes will bear fruit. Plus, they're pretty flowers to have in a yard, as opposed to, let's say, so there are other combinations that might work okay, but not as productive, such as tomatoes and a heavy feeder. That's just like a heavy feeder, like tomatoes are heavy feeders too, rose. So if you put those two together, roses may attract the pollinators and be good cut flowers, but they don't exude pest repellents naturally, and they demand the same nutrients, perhaps outcompeting your tomato for soil nutrients. Basil, on the other hand, is both a good natural fungicide to use and is good to eat too, right? Herbs in general are never heavy feeders. I'm not here to give you the exact companion planting formula, although this is one of them. I'm here to give you the principle, and the principle is to make each plant you choose be an intentional and not just random choice on the whim of a garden center moment. You will build a more abundant and successful garden that way. Now, if you're wondering what a tomato hornworm looks like, here is a picture I took of one dying on my tomato plant. The white eggs you see around it are laid by parasitic wasps. Often we are so eager to spray the wasps we see in our backyard, not realizing that they play a role in controlling other animal populations in our garden. We need them for stability. Again, this is diversity of bugs at work. Nature takes care of itself. Now back to our song. Patterns, look for patterns, and the soil is not the same thing as dirt, no. Anyone? Type the song's name in the question box if you know it. And Dave, you can shout out if somebody's answered it. What is soil anyway? Far from being a sterile bag bought from Home Depot, the soil is just like our gut. It's an ecosystem. There is an ecosystem above ground that is supported by an ecosystem below ground. Now, the giants of the soil food web are the earthworms and the arthropods up top. Then we go down to size in nematodes. Now, are nematodes bad or good? What have you heard? Nematodes can be bad, but they can also be good because sometimes they eat the bad bacteria, and when they die, they contribute to enriching the soil. Are fungi, have you ever heard of fungi, mycorrhizal fungi, saprophytic fungi in your garden? Are fungi bad or good? Contrary to what most commercial fungicides make us believe, fungi are mostly good. Around 90% of land plants are in mutually beneficial relationships with fungi. They keep the bad nematodes in check. They partner with the roots of the plants and extend these roots to help the plant absorb more nutrients like phosphorus and potassium and water. And they warn these plants that they partner with them against the bad fungi, because there's bad fungi too, that like your bacterial will, or no, that's bacterial will, but like there are fungi, now it escapes me, fungi causing diseases in plants. But they warn these plants, the mycorrhizal fungi will warn the plants against them. And they have even been called the internet of the soil, because they send messages to plants from the farthest corners of your yard, signaling the need for nutrients or warning against plant enemies. This concept of looking at the soil as an ecosystem is fairly new. But if you look at the soil this way, you cannot justify the use of pesticide in order to kill one type of fungi, one type of bacteria, one type of bug. Because in the process, you will inevitably kill the parts of this well-oiled system, and your whole garden will collapse. You may not see it right away, but the results of pesticides are devastating. Here are some practical ways to create fertile soil. Oh, and I'm just gonna do a little shout out, Dave. I think the red marks are being caused by you. So I don't know how you can erase them up. Thanks. Okay, so here are some practical ways to create fertile soil. Soil that is teeming with life. Avoid soil compaction. Try not to step into your garden beds. I know this is hard with kids, right? So in the school garden that we tend, and in our own backyard, raised beds are necessary, because you have to say, this is where you stop, and this is where you don't step, and this is where you can step and run around. It's really hard because there are parts in our garden, in our school garden, that are not demarcated, like garden bed and not garden bed, and that's where they step, and it's not doing so well. So yes, don't till every single year or every single season. If you are just starting to garden and your soil is hard as rock, you may have to till once and then inoculate with compost. Once you till, put in the life in there, inject that life in there, meaning you put in the mycorrhizal fungi, which you can buy online, worms, like red wriggler worms or whatever worms you have, and then never again. You just till once and never again. Why? Because right after you till, your job will be to introduce life in the soil that will till and build the soil up for you naturally for years to come. Every time you till with a rototiller, you unwittingly compact the soil 6 inches below it. If you need to loosen the soil, use a broad fork like the one in this picture, or the broad fork is a really big investment. It's a good investment, but it's a little pricey. So when I went to Home Depot, and they don't sell them at Home Depot too, I was able to find a smaller version with smaller tines called a spike aerator, and that was more affordable for me. So something that has tines that'll loosen up the soil. Every time you till with a rototiller, like I said, you compact the soil. A rototiller leads to very acidic soil and anaerobic conditions that bad bacteria and fungi, bad fungi, thrive in. All the mineral nutrients plants need are already in the soil. This is a very controversial statement. All the mineral nutrients plants need are already in the soil. Then why did my plant die? Because there was no life in the soil to deliver it to the plant in a plant-soluble form. Let's take a look at this legume plant. First of all, what are legumes? Legumes are members of the pea or bean family, or Fabaceae family. Just as there is a good relationship between fungi and 90% of plants, there's a good relationship between the roots of legumes and rhizobium or Frankia bacteria. These bacteria, friends of legumes, help fix nitrogen or change the nitrogen from the air and soil into a usable form that plants can uptake. A study conducted by soil scientist Donald Sparks showed that anywhere in the world, there is at any given time an average concentration of 2,000 parts per million of nitrogen in your soil. Yes, in your backyard. And you'll notice, like when I have people do soil tests, which I encourage, especially if it's the first time you're in this property for the first time, you're dealing with this garden for the first time, have a soil test. You want to know if there's lead there. You kind of want to know the pH. And then it'll always come up, and the nitrogen is always okay. And you only need 1 to 2 parts per million to grow a plant. But why, if there's already nitrogen in their soil, can't the plant grow? So like I said, it's the life in the soil that matters. It doesn't matter if it's a clayey, sandy, or whatever soil, there's already way more nitrogen that you need. When you put fertilizers that say NPK in the soil, you're doing absolutely nothing for the plant unless there is bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms present in your soil to bring the nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, and all the minerals that your plants need where they need to be. So in essence, we don't feed the soil, we feed the life in the soil. We don't feed the soil, we feed the life in the soil. Think on that for a minute. These creepy crawlies in the soil are our friends. When we plant in small spaces, especially artificial ones like pots, as I mentioned earlier, the pot needs to be a micro ecosystem teeming with life. That's why it's important to learn how to compost. And you can do this in a variety of ways in your home, whether you have a big or small space. Here are 3 ways in which we compost. We have two 3x3 compost bins at the back of our yard, which my husband Dave built. So you may have to enlist your husband's help in building something as big as this. And it doesn't have to be this fancy. Ours is just, we live in a townhome, right? Backyard. In the back, there's lots of critters, and there may be rats. So we have actually put mesh, and we have even fenced our whole backyard because we back out into a shopping center. So this is a big compost bin, but this is a real powerhouse of our soil. This is where we get the soil at the end of the year. We also house composting worms in a worm tower, which we keep on the deck. And we have most recently tried a type of fermentation composting called bokashi. So the bokashi method takes care of food wastes that you would normally not put in a compost bin, such as bones and rice and meats. Normally they don't get into a worm bin. You don't put them in a worm bin. All of this is added to our garden, but bokashi is like fermentation of compost before putting it out in the garden. It's a pre-digested compost. So more of this, by the way, this is a whole module. The process of finishing compost can take from 1 week to 3 months, depending on what method you use and where you live, because if you're in dry lands, the carbon cycle is broken, nothing gets broken down as fast, so you have a longer period of composting. But if you're interested in learning more about compost, we teach it in detail inside our Grow It Yourself garden program. Now back to our song. Patterns, look for patterns, and the soil is not the same thing as dirt. No. When you got all your plants in a row, there's one more thing you gotta know. Water should seep and spread underground really slow. Ba-ba-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-doo. In our gardens, we want water to seep into the soil and wallow there for about 12 hours, slowly dripping its way into your plant roots. We want to water less and let nature do the watering for us. Permaculture gardening is, after all, lazy gardening. This is all well and good in a rainy climate like ours in Northern Virginia. We use rain barrels, but how do you achieve this if you live in a dry climate like California, like Arizona, like Utah? How do we green the desert? Well, this is what permaculture designers did in the deserts of Jordan, where they get only about 4 inches of rain a year. And to put that into perspective, we on the East Coast get 40 inches of rain. In Utah, I know it's 11 to 18 inches. Arizona, around 11 inches of rain a year. And when the rain comes, right, it's torrential. It's like 1 rain event, 2 rain events a year, and you have to be ready to capture it. So what do? They used sunken beds instead of raised beds. They used shade cloth to shield early pioneer plants that they put in. They used legumes and heat-tolerant varieties of native perennials. So you have to work with the plants that you know grow well in that climate. They composted everything, even if initially something grows well, but you don't necessarily like it. I don't have like a native in mind, but sometimes you just need that initial start of growth. They composted everything, including toilet compost. They built wicking beds that they could wick or hold the water in vessels or beds, or they could hold the water through capillary action. And little by little, as you can see how they started in 2009, in year 4, they got the beginnings of a food forest. And this project is still going on. It's very inspiring. You can Google it, Greening the Desert. And there's even a documentary about it, and that's a really powerful documentary. So planting takes time. So it's important to have a long-term outlook, especially when it comes to water and soil and pests. Like you can't, when we think of pests, we can't stand the mosquitoes in the back of our yard, and we still have this problem ourselves. And it's so easy to just reach for that pesticide and spray them away. Even the organic pesticide, by the way, we've used those and they've killed our plants. But year 3, year 4, once you've established a really good diversity, you'll see those populations go down. Closer to home, near Washington, D.C., where we get 40 inches of annual rainfall, we try to capture the rain here by mulching fallen leaves in the fall. This is our way of warming the soil and keeping the moisture in during the hot months. And this is the abundant harvest that followed in the summer, where we hardly watered. In fact, our water pipe to the back is broken. So it's either rain barrel or nothing, or just depending on the rain. So mulch heavily, especially if you live in dry lands, 4 to 6 inches. And mulching reduces the need for watering by 25%. Mulching keeps the weeds at bay. It keeps the soil warm in the winter and wet in the summer. Use raised beds if you have good rain, and sunken beds if you have too little. Use shade-giving plants and ground covers such as creeping thyme or strawberries. When you do water, try hand watering instead of drip irrigation or running the sprinkler up in the air. Drip irrigation is better than the sprinkler up in the air if you had to choose between those two. But yeah, the most wasteful water one is sprinklers. Capture the water passively into your land through rain barrels and irrigation ditches dug to water your garden beds. In fact, we have captured rain coming down from our houses downspout straight into our garden, into our front yard. Here we are digging an irrigation trench, leading the water away from the foundations of the house and into our lettuce and flower beds. You can do this, very doable. Find your downspouts, right? So last chance. I hope somebody finds this, guesses the song, so I can give some free packets of seeds away. Patterns, look for patterns, and the soil is not the same thing as dirt. No. When you've got all your plants in a row, there's one more thing you gotta know. Water should seep and spread underground really slow. So if Dave is not gonna tell me who the winner is or is swamped with your questions, I'm gonna check the chat box here just a little bit if I can, to see how everything is happening, how everybody's doing. Oh my goodness, you guys have so many questions. Annoyingly familiar, close every door. No, let's see. Memories, no, sorry, Valerie. Na dun dun da dun dun da dun 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 da dun dun da dun 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 da dun 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 dun. It's not feelings, but it's about that era. I wonder if Katie knows. Okay, so now to your questions, right? We know the prospect of growing food may perhaps seem daunting and outright frustrating to some of you. Perhaps you may have experienced gardening problems or roadblocks in the past. We know your problems because we were you not too long ago. And working our way out of these problems is what moved us to create our Permaculture Gardens website in the first place. There was nothing online that could guide us suburban permies, suburban homesteader wannabes, along the path towards an abundant food forest in our backyard. We honestly wish we could be right there in your backyard to encourage you through the actual process of gardening and to make food growing happen for you this year. So just imagine Dave and I hanging out in your yard and you asking us questions. So we want to hit all the questions that you have right now. First, we know that there is no time. How can we garden when there's hardly even any time to cook? It's hard enough as it is just getting dinner on the table, right? Who among you can relate? 4 p.m., everyone needs homework help. At the same time, dinner needs to be made and I'm supposed to garden too. But it can actually be easier to cook when everything is fresh from the garden and meals are simpler, roasted, stir-fried with garlic and salt, and of course, eaten more frequently raw, chopped up into salads. There's like big diversity in foods when you grow your own garden. Gardening makes cooking simpler. Or you might say right now, it's too chaotic in my life. I don't want to add one more thing to my plate before I organize my home, before I Marie Kondo my home. But tell you what, your garden is part of your home. It's the first thing you come home to and the last part of your home you leave behind. And what if I told you all you needed to grow a garden was the amount of time it took to check Facebook? 15 minutes a day? 15 minutes. I can do 15 minutes, right? That, by the way, is a tip from our permaculture friend. She's a teacher as well. And she told us, teacher and author, she told us 7 of those minutes should be spent just observing the garden. Sometimes, I have to tell you, I'll be so frustrated with the kids, but I'll do those 15 minutes in the garden. Get out there, put the kitchen scraps in the compost bin. And when I get back in the house, I'm calm and peaceful again. And all of a sudden, all the mud that the kids have tracked in doesn't bother me so much because I've tracked some mud myself. But yeah, you get to see the bigger picture in the garden. If you garden, you know what I'm talking about. Perhaps you might say, I can't grow my own food right now because I don't know where to begin, or I wish I could consult with someone on my design or choice of plants. We know that when we first started growing, we found so much conflicting info and we initially failed because we had no plan to start off with. What if we provided a ready-made plug-and-plant plan for you, which, by the way, if you stay until the end of this webinar, you will receive in your inboxes? What if we showed you how to create your own plan? How to grow from seed? Like Katie Kimball likes to say, baby step by baby step. 1 month at a time, 1 week at a time. Perhaps you've wasted money, especially when the pests come, from aphids to deer. If only we knew how to deal with the pests organically in a natural way, we would have way fewer pesticides in the market, don't you think? Or you may have wasted money in the past when you bought bad varieties or seeds or plants on the whim of a garden moment. These varieties may not have grown well because they were hybridized and you didn't exactly know where to buy natives or non-GMO or organic or heirloom seeds or plants. Or perhaps you researched and went out of your way to finally get your rare precious gem of a plant, which I did because I bought my sea buckthorn. It's rich in vitamins and minerals, has the full omega spectrum, right? And it cost me $50 and I killed them because they have to come in twos and pairs. Because I don't want to say it, I was a black thumb. That's not true of me. I am not a black thumb. There are no black thumbs. The black thumb is a myth of anyone. You are a green thumb, my friend, for you can grow it yourself. And we're here to show you how. After a lot of mistakes, a lot of education, and a lot of beta testing, we developed Grow It Yourself, or GIY. What is Grow It Yourself? Grow It Yourself is a monthly gardening program that begins with a monthly plan with simple garden goals that you can implement every month or every week. It's simple, straight. This is a sample straight from inside Grow It Yourself. Some of these goals involve watching videos like these. We have how-to videos showing you how to design your raised beds, seed start, transplant, harvest, create lasagna gardens, compost, and so much more. Finally, at the end of each month, we check in with you to personally assist with your unique growing situation and to provide resources for your next steps. Based on feedback from our beta testers, and our current program members, this is what they found to be the most valuable help for them, doing a 60-minute deep dive each month and getting the guidance they needed. This is just the tip of the iceberg, guys, because there are bonus garden planning tools. Like I mentioned earlier about that app where you plug in your zip code and you can see when to start what. Plug in your zip code and plug in the plants that you want to grow, and then it shows you where in the year you can plant them that they've created. There's a planning tool there as well. So lots and lots of bonuses inside GIY. So if you sign up for Grow It Yourself before we end the webinar, we give you a special bonus. And it's so special. We only have 8 left, and minusing, we have less than 8 left. And I don't know whether I could track everything because I'm giving this presentation as well, but we might have even less than, I'm sure, less than 8. If you sign up before we end this call, you get a free permakit mailed to you. What is a permakit, you may ask? It's short for permaculture kit and contains 21 curated organic non-GMO seeds for your summer garden. In fact, organic and non-GMO seeds, I think, at the same time, which is really hard to research and find. So it comes with proper seed starting trays that we find to be most successful in starting our crops. A part of this package is a planting guide that tells you how to grow each one of those seeds. And it's part of Grow It Yourself, of course. We want to reward our fast action takers in this way. So for those of you who sign up right away before this webinar is done, not only do you get the steep discount for the program, you also get our permakit, our garden in a box growing kit, mailed to you for free. What's inside a permakit? Okay, sneak peek. Tomatoes, squash, beans, peas, pumpkins, pepper, yarrow, echinacea, herbs like basil, thyme, oregano, calendula, nasturtiums. All of these are very useful permaculture plants that fill in a lot of niches in a garden, create a lot of diversity, and hit a lot of functions. So each one of them is like, you know how I was talking about the basil being, it's edible, but it also wards off pests, and it's aromatic, and it helps boost tomato growing plants. So all of this is included in that. All of this has been taken into consideration in curating those seeds for you. Now, the permakit is the bonus if and only if you are a fast action taker and sign up before we sign up off today. Now, for your other bonus for having come this far in this webinar, your 3 free garden templates so you can grow your own food. Free permaculture templates for garden plots, a very practical application for all that you have just learned today. And you can certainly screenshot this as you follow along, but do not worry, you will also be receiving this download at the end of this webinar as our way of saying thank you for wanting to grow your own food and taking the time out of your precious day to learn about gardening. So the first template is called an herb spiral. Nice, right? And it's based on the principle that each herb has its own specific growing requirement. Well, what better way than to give each of them a suitable home than in this herb spiral, which fulfills water requirements of drier herbs, situating those Mediterranean herbs above. Can you guess what those are? Those herbs are that are above. And the water-loving plants are located down below. Wonder if you can guess what this water-loving plant is. It's mint. So to illustrate, the Mediterranean herbs like rosemary and lavender are on the top, and the sun-loving herbs should be on the west, actually, not really shown here, but basil should be on the west, calendula should be, thyme, borage can be anywhere in the middle, and then the bottoms are the water-loving plants like mint, watercress, nasturtiums. They love water a lot, so you put them down there. And then square foot gardens were popularized by an engineer named Mel Bartholomew. We take his system up a notch by creating a permaculture guild to support what Dave and I like to call a star performer, as for instance in this following planting combination. Our star performers are the tomatoes in this instance. and they are supported by marigolds. We plant in some herbs like basil and beans to grow around it. And if you're wondering what these numbers are, they're there to tell you, you put one kind of this herb, which is thyme here, 9, you can grow 9 beans in a square foot, 4 basil plants in a square foot, 9 beans in this square foot, 1 tomato because it grows big, right? 4 calendulas here. It's just a guide to help figure out how many you can safely put in there without stifling the growth. But here's a little quiz, and I will answer as I go because we only have a few minutes left and I want to make sure I get Q&As in. Why did we choose to surround our tomatoes in a square foot garden with beans? Did you listen to the talk? To provide nitrogen in the soil for it. Tomatoes are heavy feeders and you want nitrogen there readily available for them to consume. Why did we put different plants in each square? We did this to confuse the pests through our diverse planting. The varying aromas will definitely confuse the bad bugs. Why did we put marigolds near the tomatoes? To deter the tomato hornworm and to attract pollinators. Why creeping thyme? Because thyme makes a great ground cover. Why did we put the tomatoes in the middle? Because they are potentially the biggest crop, and of course they would need stalking. So in terms of visual aesthetic and practicality, you want your tomatoes in the middle of your square foot. Finally, the third template is the apple guild. Using the same permaculture principles, you can create your own apple guild, a little food forest in your backyard. Here's a formula for one of many ways in which you can create an apple guild. First, plant your apple tree, then surround it with garlic or alliums or onions for weed suppression, and add in your rhubarb, a perennial which likes to grow in the shade that would make for a great mulcher or a fertilizer for your tree. And you want to fill in the layers of your food forest so that there are no gaps, right? And no weeds can come in. So you put nasturtiums as a great edible pollinator attraction as well. Alfalfa is a great ground cover to have. It's a nitrogen fixer as well as being a ground cover. And finally, herbs. Herbs can do both pest repelling and ground covering functions for you, and they're edible. So it's good to build up redundancies in the system. So all your bases are covered. And if one plant fails, then you have another one to take its place. So don't just plant one garlic, plant several, right? There is so much more we want to share with you that we cannot include in one webinar. And if we did that, we'd overwhelm you. However, we can guide you through your garden project one step at a time through our Grow It Yourself program. Yes, you can and will grow it yourself and have your kids come to you to proudly show off their daily harvest, just as Simon did in this picture, where he proudly shows off his strawberries and peas. Because of Grow It Yourself, you will make eating healthy a reality because you will be eating the freshest, most delicious, most nutrient-dense, most local, and cheapest organic produce you can find. And some of them you can't even find in the grocery, such as this pawpaw. It's very difficult to describe how emotional this moment of tasting your first pawpaw fruit is. And this is what this picture is all about. My neighbor, we had her try it. She said, I love it, but I cannot. I'm trying hard to find what I can compare it to in my mind's database of flavors, and I find nothing to compare it with. Some people say it tastes like a cross between a mango and a banana, but it's something different than that. This is another quote from Bill Mollison, who says that the greatest change we need to make is from consumption to production, even if on a small scale in our own gardens. If only 10% of us do this, there's enough for everyone. Hence, the futility of revolutionaries who have no gardens, who depend on the very system they attack, and who produce words and bullets, not food and shelter. Through Grow It Yourself, you'll be learning how to be self-sufficient, essentially empowering yourself to grow your own food. That is the true revolution. And of course, it's the most significant environmental impact towards saving the planet. It is the greenest choice. Did you know that it has a bigger impact than wind power, more than solar energy, growing your food, which is something you can do without having to install or save up for solar power, solar panels, right? So accessible. Growing your own food changes local climates, local ecosystems, and local economies. So you are healing the planet, and ultimately, through GIY, you'll be healing yourself. And I mean this for you in a very personal way. There's benefit from the mere soil therapy that is involved in your God-given right to place a seed in the ground, it will change you. If you've grown food in the past, you know this. Let Mother Nature take its course, watch it grow. The art of touching the ground and connecting with nature is a solemn act. It's what all of us are meant to do, and we need to reclaim it. Let's take back the ability, our right to grow food. There's no such thing as a black thumb. Don't give in to that temptation. Learning what to do, growing with others can change that. So come grow with us, learn from our mistakes. Now finally do something about that broken food system. Make the switch from consumer, mere consumer, to actual producer. We are garden guides. We have not only seen this change in our backyard, but we started helping our neighbors grow. And some of them are subscribers to Grow It Yourself. Among the people we help are our local Title I school, where our kids are 2nd and 4th grade, and we've helped and build and maintain the garden there as a way to teach permaculture and as a resource for teachers and students to use. We've helped people from coast to coast. So people, I know somebody had a lizard or something, an iguana. Try this, see if that will deter the iguana. This is Emmy's deck in New Jersey. She learned how to grow despite the pesky squirrels that like to hang out and eat her tomatoes on her deck. And Amanda built her own herb spiral in California. And it's just a work of cottage art. She was in your shoes last year watching a similar webinar, and she won a permakit. So, I mean, she got the permakit bonus. So there you go. Last year, we won the most innovative sustainable award at the Green Festival in Washington, D.C., and that's me and Dave and our baby twins in our carriers at the Washington, D.C. Convention Center. Now, I'm about to break for question and answer, but not before I tell you that if you sign up for Grow It Yourself, Dave and I want to offer you another special bonus. If you sign up for our annual subscription, you will get a discounted rate of $79. This is like super dirt cheap. Just use the discount code GROWNOW20 at checkout. What? This is a ridiculous amount. As my fellow blogger friend, health coach Emily Allen recently pointed out, $99, the regular price at which Grow It Yourself is now, more than pays for itself in the amount of produce you will be harvesting. Because you have invested time, but because you guys have invested time to really learn the theory of successful gardening, we give $20 back to you. $79 for the knowledge and the power to grow $700 worth of produce and possibly more over and over again, better and better each year, is an amazing steal. Remember, if you sign up before we end this webinar, you get the discount for the annual subscription, plus you get the permakit. You guys, if you went to a nursery, you would have spent more than $79, I bet. I know I would, without all the bonuses you are getting now, without the assurance that you will be able to grow anything at all. All you have to do is go to growmyownfood.com that you currently see on your screen and go from there following the prompts. Now, if you happen to miss the webinar or you are watching the replay, you may certainly go ahead and purchase, and the discount will be available for 3 days, but you will not avail of the lovely permakit, which is only available for those who sign up before the webinar ends and while supplies last. And you want the permakit, because I tell you, this is a beautiful garden in a box. And if you want to see what this permakit did for a first-time gardener, okay, oops. I'm so excited, I'm like, fudge fingers now. There. So this is the backyard of Nicole, also named Nicole. And this was her backyard on our first consultation. And we gave her a permakit, and she built this amazing garden. That is everything. That's everything in the permakit is in her garden, and we can't even feature. This picture doesn't show it all because the tomatoes are just coming in. This is early summer. So this is an amazing garden that you can build. This is possible for you as well. Simply go to growmyownfood.com, click to the subscribe page, register your name and address, and remember to use the discount code GROWNOW20, GROWNOW20, when you do so, and your bonus will be mailed to the address you used when you signed up. Welcome to Grow It Yourself. Welcome to GIY. And now I will stop my sharing and I will answer some questions. And Dave hopefully will has been answering some questions. And I know Katie, do you want to have any, Katie Kimball, if you want to, what do you think of everything that came about? I'm like, whoo!
Hi, I'm back on.
What do you think about everything? Is it like a lot to digest?
Of course, but that's the point of cramming a lot of information into an hour. So
right,
it's it's inspiring to see the pictures and the food and think about the kids being out there. Like I know my kids would help garden, and we're home all summer, so I have to like let the ideas percolate over the winter and see if I can make something beautiful happen next year. But at the least, my goal is to compost and successfully. So Dave said to spike it with some horse manure. So I guess my to-do list says find horse manure.
Yes, horse manure is a good spiker. Another plant called comfrey is a good spiker. Sometimes and this is depending where you live, sometimes like a dead fish is high in nitrogen. So that'll be, okay, I'm trying to catch up with all where do I put seedlings in my house to grow them? It's cold and I have limited space by my windows. I don't know, do you see my camera? Am I showing my video? Because I don't see myself.
And Nix,
yes?
I wanted to just interrupt quickly. You never said what the song was.
Right? Oh, I didn't. It's because I didn't know whether somebody guessed it or not. So I was afraid to give it away. But did anybody guess it? Okay, so it is called Witchcraft, Wonderful Witchcraft. And although I know it's simply taboo. You guys know that song? No, we did have one webinar where somebody guessed it. And it's, oh man, ow. Of course, Jeannie says, yeah, I know. Oh man, you just have to stick with us because we always have a song embedded in our webinars for you to guess. And it's not always from this era. Sometimes it's Broadway, sometimes it's 70s, sometimes it's 80s. So it's a lot of fun. So someone was asking about seedlings and I don't see my camera, so I can't really, I don't see my own screen. So I can't really show you. I wanted to show you on our, okay, look for your south-facing windows. Put the, you can put up something in front of your south-facing windows as a, now I can't say the word, Dave, as something like to put the seedlings on.
A shelf.
A shelf. Okay. My friend, actually, she took her south-facing windows and put in an unused ironing board. And she put the seedling trays on the ironing board in front of her. I know that sounds really ghetto and it's not there anymore, but they've built shelves, just like the one that Katie has above her head. Katie Kimball has above her head, like shelves on the south-facing windows where you can. And then that's where you put it in the wintertime. That's where we put it in the winter times, or any space inside. The name of the song was Witchcraft by Frank Sinatra. I guessed Frank Sinatra, Martha said. Okay, fine, Martha. You have to email us. Okay, I'm gonna give you a packet of seeds. Did we cover all is it true that we should not be afraid to get rid of a sick plant? What do you think about that? Depends on what kind of sick also. What do you say, Dave?
It depends on the plant too. Like if it's an annual,
and it's going out anyway.
Yeah, I tend to be more on the side of just production. So, for example, when I grow tomato plants, I've got like 100 tomato plants. Now, the spares I actually give away to the school or give away to people around the neighborhood. But don't get too, don't go in this like scarcity mindset where you have your 3 plants and you're trying to protect them, and then when one of them dies, it's like one of your family members have died. So you really want to have like hundreds of plants, and then one died. Oh well, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, that's definitely what I would say too. Yes, very good. Tune was Witchcraft, nothing to do with patterns. Yeah, nothing to do with patterns, just a nice tune to plug in there. Anything else that I missed, Dave? Did you cover everything you think? Where do we sign up? growmyownfood.com and follow the prompts. And if you're having trouble, we can share our screen and show you how that's done. I'm in Texas. I'm hiding in the AC from my garden. Haha. Okay, you know, underneath your AC, Brandy, in Texas, you can put, you have a little microclimate there to grow stuff. So all the drippings, I don't know if your AC is the window AC. If you do have a window AC, then all like the condensation from that, you can grow a vegetable garden in that. And you could even grow kale in that, because in the Philippines, somebody did that and was able to grow kale in the Philippines from the water in their AC. Now, I don't know exactly, like, I don't know, condensation water, if that's healthy for you, but it's possible to do something. What was the code? The code is Grow Now 20. And I'll go back there. Grow Now 20, GROWNOW20. Okay, let me see if I can share that again with you all. You can also, so lots, how relevant is your course to someone living on a boat, very exposed to wind and sun? Based on your location, you're living on a boat? Yeah, probably it's not a water, unless you have a garden bed on your boat, which one of our growers actually did. So they put, not a boat though, it was a float on their river. It was just there all the time. And then they put the garden bed on a float, which is in a river. So if you can do that, then you can do something like this. No available subscription levels for your account, Dave. Having trouble subscribing. So Dave will answer your question, Ju, but thank you so much. And I will share that screen again, just to show everybody here. Okay, we are done on top of the hour, but with the presentation, but I wanted to leave room for definitely for questions for anybody. I'm sure there are more questions. Okay, I have another call at 3, so I have to scoot to go. All right, Katie, other Katie, goodbye. And does anybody have, somebody asked how many minutes a day does this work? And I did say 15 minutes a day, and that is true. And 7 minutes of those have to be observation time. So Dave, and to incorporate it if you're working or if your husband's working and wants to do this too, and you're gonna solicit your husband's help, which I hope will happen, get the whole family growing. So he does 15 minutes in the morning before he leaves for work. And then when he comes back from work, he does 15 minutes again. And then how I incorporate it with my kids is when my son Ethan comes home, I tell him to take the compost out and turn the compost, because we actually have a compost crank that will speed up the decomposition of the compost. So those are other ways to get the kids involved. Another way that we're going on right now, and I'm a little bit afraid that, you know, we're encouraging competition, but hopefully it'll be good for everyone. So each kid that can grow. So we have 4 olders and 2 twins, 4 years to 11, and 4 of them they are now captains of each plant family that we are harvesting. So one is Captain Legume, one is Captain Leafy Greens, one is Captain, what is it, Dave? Captain Legume, Captain Leafy Greens, Captain Tomato, and Captain Melon. That's Simon. Okay, the one who had the strawberries, that's Simon's job now. Melon and actually strawberries are also included there. And so they have to, we tally how much harvest they get every day, and then everything is tallied up. And the one who gets the most number, it's like the most number of produce gets to pick a treat for the whole family. So say like 6 Flags or something like that. He said, but right now they're just like happy for, can we go to ice cream place or something? They're so shallow. But yeah, we were saying, no, you can do like a bigger thing. So they're very into it though. Yes, Goo Jordan, it does mean that there are different things you need to grow and you may need to be more careful about storing water. Yes. Yeah, hotter climates is definitely, that's why we need to get you guys one-on-one with us, or 2-on-1 or 4-on-1 or in a group consult, because every growing situation is a learning experience, and inside Grow It Yourself, we study your situation and your altitude, your climate, which we've been exposed to as well. So we can recommend the best practices of permaculture principles there. Now, permaculture is all about principles that already work. Constants in nature. When does the moon, when does the moon come up after how many days and all that stuff? Like, when does the sun shine? How many hours of sun you get? Somebody asked, I get either morning sun or afternoon sun, but I only get 4 hours of sun a day. First principle of permaculture, observe. When is your sun coming up? Is it in the afternoon? Do you get the sun in the afternoon, or is it in the morning? Totally different thing. Because whether you live, also if you live in Australia, that's a totally different thing. I know some Australians are going to watch this webinar. So theirs is the opposite. If you live, my advice for you, south facing in Australia would be totally different than my advice for you south facing in North America, because they're two climate zones. So it's really all encompassing. It's amazing. You just learn and learn more, and we're just edified and humbled for all the learning that we've gathered and continue to grow and learn throughout the years from other teachers and other growers and our subscribers themselves. So now we feel like they could teach others as well.
Hey, Nix, I've been answering a lot of emails. So yes. Unfortunately, Zoom maxes out at 100 participants.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who emailed saying that they couldn't get in because they already hit the max number. So we're going to have a replay, but you might want to do another kind of like encore.
Okay.
Something to
I am
think
so
about.
sorry. And I apologize for that. We did not know that was the case, and we did not expect this number for sure and we saw that the numbers were rising 2 days ago, and I did not think that this would max out. So this has always been our webinar platform. Yes, thank you, Duncan. We might consider doing that in the future. Is there planting to do all year, or when does it make most sense to start? So do you get food? Yes. So our thing is to really get the food all year round. You can theoretically grow lettuces all year round in America and North America and Canada. The person who said that was Nikki Jabor, who grows in Canada, and she has grown her lettuces all year round. So that is something you can do. You can extend the harvest depending on where you live with row covers. Somebody asked about covering their planting beds, their raised planters, to extend the harvest in the fall. Yes. And we teach that as well at Grow It Yourself, and how to create warmer places outside for greenhouses for the spring, extending the season. And then when it comes to winter time, then you can grow indoors. And that's our next phase, is just growing indoors. We have bananas, we have, as you may have seen, we have lemon trees. We're growing all sorts of things indoors. And we want to grow, Dave wants to grow onions indoors. We have so much more. It's already 3:10. We have so much more to offer you guys through growmyownfood.com, our website, and through the program. We hope you will take advantage of the discount of the permakit today. Actually, before I end, so I'll be ending soon. So 3:15, I'm going to look at all the people who subscribe. It's 3:10. Okay, so I am just about to go, and I want to check with Katie to see if there are any last words that I probably should be addressing, or anything else that did you ever did you use Grow Now 20 for yearly? Grow Now 2, I couldn't get the word, okay. You couldn't get the code to work, Tanisha, to everyone. Okay, so let's extend it. Okay, I'm going to extend it since the code is not working. I'll extend it to 4 o'clock, right, Dave? Is that good?
Extend what?
No, because Tanisha said the Grow Now 20 is not working. Oh, it's only working for the monthly. No, it's only working for the annual. So the monthly is already, it's the same as it is, right? Oh, it's Grow Now 2 for monthly. Grow Now 20 for yearly and Grow Now 2 for monthly.
Yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't use the same code for two different products. So, yeah.
Save old windows for grow boxes. Correct, Frankie. And I wonder, have you done that? Is it okay to add chicken poop to the compost? No. That is perfectly, I'm answering your second question. Is it too much a bad thing? How much is the nitrogen to carbon ratio? It's 1:4, I think. I have to review my own thing.
So you want a 25 to 1.
25 to 1
is the ideal. So that we can dig up a chart, but basically you have to look at the ratio for whatever you're putting in, so that in the end, all the ratios that get added up will equal 25 to 1. So adding some chicken poop is fine, but then you've got to offset that with some
sawdust. Right, and browns, some browns. So you have nitrogen, leafy greens, or green scraps, kitchen scraps, which are nitrogeny. And then you have carbon, which is your mulch, leaf mulch. And yes, if you have chickens, then your system is even more diverse and it's richer. Chicken poop is a good. So it doesn't have to be horse manure, Katie. It can be chicken poop. Okay, what are good plants or perennials for Maryland? I think you could definitely... we live in the same climate pretty much. So pawpaw, we have a whole list on our blog as well. Perennials, it depends on what perennials. Trees, that's where we bought the pawpaw from a nursery in Maryland. Apples, good plants for Maryland, pretty much everything we grow. So everything I've shown you. Okay, horse poo too hot. Yeah, it depends on how big your compost bin is, Frankie. So if you use too much of the horse poo, you want to offset it with a lot of fallen leaves, mulch, straw, carbon, sawdust, wood, and then it won't be that hot. It's just a little bit, right? Yes, even if they're gone, we'll make up a fall kit for you. If you sign up now, you know what, we can't, since we're so busy with a chat box hip happening and then people trying to get into the room and not being able to make it, then Lydia, I was trying to answer a question. So everything that we grow, cucumbers, perennials, blueberries, strawberries, blueberries, gooseberries, what else? I'm like, blackberries. So those are all bushes, and then trees.
So you're asking about berries?
Yeah, no, what kind of perennials are good for Maryland? That's our climate, so everything we're growing. Apples, pears, plums, right? What pawpaw did you have in the picture? It's just one pawpaw. Now I can, Asimina triloba. I can't remember. I can't believe I can remember that. I can't remember my name, but I can remember a pawpaw is Asimina triloba. And that is available from a nursery in Maryland called Sun Tree Nursery. I can't remember the name of the nursery.
Yeah, if you email us, we can send you a list of nurseries where you can get reliable.
Okay. All right, Frankie, good question. Asphalt roof rainwater is not good for vegetables. Do we have an asphalt roof, Dad? Dave?
I'm not sure exactly. It's a tile, and
it's a tile
I think they sometimes use asphalt for the ceiling. So what you can do is you don't treat that water as it's basically gray water. So ideally, if you can filter it through reeds or through beneficial fungus, then that will help to reduce the toxicity greatly. Especially beneficial mycorrhizal fungi they remove so much. They tie up a lot of the toxic metals and toxic things in the environment. So they're like the EPA Superfund's best helpers.
Yeah. So first line of defense, like first line of filtration from your downspout. Say if you are going to use the water, especially if you live in the dry lands, you get all the water you can get. Is you have a mesh of wire that'll capture all the debris, and then it'll go into your rain barrel or wherever. Rain barrel technically, and then another filtration will be just like all the other debris will go down and settle in the bottom. Then your downspout is a little higher, coming from the rain barrel, and then the water comes out, and then whatever comes out of the rain barrel, if you think that your roof is toxic, then it will be, all the toxicity will be sequestered by the carbon naturally in the soil if you put it out through a gray water filtering system that's natural, that's organic, like a reed bed system, or for instance, where I'm growing now, which is my water from my washing machine. I found the hose and I have it on my Facebook Live if you want to see it. Just before coming on this call, I was showing how I was going to, I was planting irises near there, and I was going to make that a reed kind of a filtration system for the soapy water that came out. I never use like bleach or any of the bad chemicals in my washing, but still, you don't want to have soap, something that's too soapy, irrigating your whole garden. So you go through the tough plants that can take that can tolerate the soap or the basicity of the water, and then filter out, sequester the toxins in the carbon chains that are in your rich, fertile soil, and then irrigate out to the rest of your garden. So I don't know if that makes sense, but there is a way to capture, to purify your water from your roof. Oh, welcome. Wonderful. Duncan's 8-year-old daughter. It's more acidic, but I think if you go out and you have vinegar, the amount of vinegar that we use in the wash is not so much that you have more of the water than the vinegar, hopefully. So when it goes out, then it won't acidify your soil as much. My username is Calcaran. Okay, Catherine is trying to get in, and I think Dave is helping her. Okay, so 3:15. I think I should close now, right? There's 65 participants. Okay. All right. How can we deal with gophers, Lynn? So gophers, you'll have to put a wire fence that we recently used. Now I can't remember the name of it, Dave. But it's a wire fence mesh that will be where the meshes are smaller than what the gopher can go through. We've just installed that ourselves against rats, actually. But when you put it and install it, you can't just put it surface level to the soil. You have to have it go deep in, like 8 inches down into the soil before your garden bed. And that's how you protect it from gophers. So if you can fence off the gophers from digging, that's one way. Another thing is to think of what eats gophers. We have some garden lizards, and at first, when I first started in this townhouse, I was so scared. I called like animal control for a garden lizard, and they didn't come because I didn't want to pay anything. But now when I see a garden lizard, I am really happy because I'm like, okay, mosquitoes are eaten, rats are eaten, anything. Okay, thank you. Great, Catherine. It says that you're active. Awesome, Catherine. We'll be sending you that permakit. Okay, so officially seven permakits. As far as we know, we don't know who else has signed up. Is this the same with voles? So I have no experience with voles, but maybe Dave does. But yes, in general, for all burrowing creatures, you dig that fence into the soil, so above the soil. Then we have all sorts of other obstacles for them to pass. Like our compost bin is already meshed in, but even our fence has that rat guard, the mesh of wire that's down. And then we even stuff sometimes steel wool into wherever we think that they can stuff themselves in. And sometimes, and this is bad, they'll eat the steel wool and then they'll choke, of course. So that's what happened. We didn't even do anything. We just put the steel wool there to just deter them, but they ate it. So that's not good. Oh, Tanisha, welcome. Welcome to Grow It Yourself. I can't wait to see you. Our first call is actually tonight at 8. But I don't expect you to be there since you've just been here. But I want to see, we'll get you growing, Tanisha and Catherine. Okay.
So next, I will probably have to drop.
I'm sorry. Yes, Dave does have a day job, and I do too. So I have to get my kids from the babysitters. But thank you all so much.